Pastor J.E. Caterson here. It's been our privilege this summer, Pastor Ming, Nigel, our teaching elder, and myself, well, even Pastor Archie, to actually look at the women of the Bible, to look at actually those women who actually shaped the biblical story. We call them the heroines of the Bible and the lessons that they teach us. Last week we looked at the story of Martha. This week we're going to look at her sister Mary. And we're going to do so by actually opening up the Word of God, and we're going to turn directly to John chapter 12. So if you have your scriptures, you can open up to John 12, and I'm going to actually just read the first 8 verses. Listen to the word of the Lord. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Mary served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. Then Mary took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance or the aroma of the perfume. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It would have been worth a year's wages. But he did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As the keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to whatever was put into it. Leave her alone, Jesus replied. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. This is the word of the Lord. You know, it's clear that Mary, when I look at this story and look deeply into it, that Mary enjoyed her freedom. Now, Martha, in Martha's story, we learn that Mary, she kind of gravitated way towards freedom, and the chance to sit at Jesus' feet was as natural as Martha gravitated towards the responsibility of preparing the meal. Even again in this story, yet another one, Martha is preparing meals, and there is Mary. But as we saw last week in the earlier gospel account that where Mary was sitting at his feet, the scenario is going to be a little bit different here, for it unfolds with the previous reading that we saw, that where Mary was going her happy way, and Martha kept accounts. She made the meals, she maintained order, and when Martha appealed to Jesus to bring some discipline into Mary's life, I don't think it was the first time the situation was an issue between these two women, between these two sisters. It simply was the case that Martha called on an outside authority finally to help. And it was a call that I have a feeling she may have had other times directed to her brother, Lazarus. Right? Are you getting what I'm saying? This is like sibling rivalry. This is the dynamics within a house. And I don't want you to miss the things that I'm going to say today, because really what we're talking about is the family dynamic, and even within the family of God, within the church. So don't miss these things. So here's the thing. So we see in that first story, there's Martha preparing the meals, Mary sitting at his feet. Martha comes and complains. Jesus says, Martha, 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 what are you thinking? She chose better. And then, as you remember from last week, that there was one of 3 choices. Either Martha went back to the kitchen and kind of just kept doing her thing. Mary got up and helped a little bit. Or that maybe Martha figured out, maybe I haven't chosen the best thing. But when we get to John chapter 12, we see that Martha is doing what she does always. She's serving the disciples, serving the meals. And Mary, Mary was about to become, ready for the word, extravagant. Extravagant. She took a large bottle of costly perfume, a pure nard, and poured it on Jesus' feet. It was a wild thing to do. It was expensive. It was unrestrained and altogether inappropriate. Do you hear what I said? It was inappropriate even back then. And Jesus, the treasurer of the apostles and the man who knew the market well, made a quick estimate. The perfume was worth 300 denarii. Right? That was the first century way of saying this represents a working man's wages for an entire year. Translate that even to minimum wage today, and we would be seeing what we're talking about, the language of our day, it would be the excess of tens of thousands of dollars. Because even if you make minimum wage in our country today, if you worked all throughout the year, you would make tens of thousands of dollars. You know, not $5,000, $10,000, but more than that. Probably $20,000, $30,000 is what this was going to add up to. Sometimes, while we're waiting for a haircut and we pick up one of those magazines that contain 5 pages of opulent, advertisement on each page of content, where everything seems so grossly overpriced, even in such a magazine, I can't imagine perfume costing that much. Could you imagine a perfume? And I've been to France on missions trips, and I've taken my family there when I've done military training, and I've gone into those perfume places, and they're exotic. But, there are bottles of perfume that cost thousands of dollars. I'm not sure about 10 or 20,000, but it's mind-boggling. It's that kind of perfume that we're talking about, of course, that you touch carefully, just basically on the earlobe, perhaps on the forehead or the base of the neck. The slightest touch will make a scent enough for people to almost taste. But at this moment, Mary isn't a person of taste. She's a woman adoring with gratitude, who has a single-minded devotion, has lost all sense of time, place, and money. She only knows that she must pay the debt of love. Mary's nature is such that she doesn't really need a particular reason for gratitude. Her nature went out looking for reasons, but she had an extraordinary reason just now, because some days or weeks earlier in Jesus' encounter with her, he raised her brother from the dead. That Lazarus was dead, he was in the grave 3 days, and Jesus came and he raised him from the dead. There's no doubt that this played a part into what Mary did. But I repeat, Mary was entirely in character at the moment. She was the lighthearted, the one who laughed, the one who enjoyed every ounce of life, everything that Jesus said. She hung on every word, and she was extravagant. She was an extravagant personality, and she had found the person who merited extravagance such as hers. Now, this perfume pouring would itself have been enough. But you know what? It wasn't just that. Mary had only just begun. When I say she was extravagant, don't miss what I'm saying. I hope that you realize I'm speaking far more of money. Money, if you have it, it's the least form of extravagant thing that you could do. For they say that there's always more where that came from. But that's not what I'm talking about here. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Because when you give yourself away, that's quite a different matter. Mary began to wipe Jesus' feet with her hair. It was an act of such complete self-abandonment that would mark her and the community for the rest of her life. They would never mention her name without a reference by story, by gesture, by innuendo of this day. Mary's gift of perfume was large, but not compared with the gift of herself. But Mary would be remembered in Bethany for her unlikely conduct. The gospel writer lets us know that there's something else that was going on. The house was filled, John writes, with the fragrance of perfume. John's gospel is marked by the author's use of double meaning. In this story of Jesus, the woman of Samaria, in John chapter 4, water has both its customary physical meaning and its spiritual meaning. When Jesus heals the blind man in chapter 9, blindness is both physical and spiritual. So here, when John tells us that the fragrance of perfume has filled the house, he's dealing with far more than just, matter of fact. Some theologians, and especially in the early centuries of the church, said that this meant that the whole body of the church experienced the fragrance of Mary's deed. I think John wanted his readers to understand that the loveliness of this act of generosity invaded all of life. Nothing could shut it out. Nothing could diminish its sweet, strong, irresistible influence. Jesus himself said as much. In Matthew's record of this story, Jesus says in Matthew 26, "Truly I tell you, whenever the good news is proclaimed to the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her. So it is that we write about it today, 20 centuries after the event." Mary was extravagant sort, no doubt about it. Our culture would argue that some of this quality was written into her genetic code. But when she made Jesus Christ her Lord, a new quality came into whatever part of her natural disposition she had. Now her inclination towards extravagance found a magnificent purpose. But remember this, above all, Mary gave herself. This was the ultimate extravagance. And this possibility is open to all of us. Did you hear what I just said? This possibility is open to all of us, whatever our place in our family order, whatever our extent of our financial resources, whatever our natural inclination to restrain or to be generous. God calls us all. God's call is for us to give of ourselves. And how should we do it? We should do it just like Mary, extravagantly. I want to challenge you this week. There was much to learn from Mary's sister Martha. Oh my goodness, yes. About, what is the best thing to do? Is it really to actually that we want more of Jesus? But what Mary is teaching us is that Jesus is so much that we actually want to give all of ourselves to him. So did you get the play on that? Martha teaches us that actually what we should want is more of Jesus, that we should want all that he has to offer us. Mary already has that point. She knows that Jesus is the end-all to end-all, the Alpha and the Omega, the one who raised her brother from the dead, the one that would die on a cross. She probably even had an inkling that this was something in this act that she was doing, preparing his body for burial. I want to challenge you to be that type of person that this hero, Mary, teaches us to be. That basically at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your birth order is. It doesn't matter to the extent of all the finances that you have or you don't have. It doesn't matter if you're a restrained person or an outgoing person. God calls for us to give all of ourselves to him and do it extravagantly. I want to give the call just as I did last week. If you are a person who's never said yes to Jesus Christ, it's the ABCs. That if you accept that Jesus Christ died on a cross for you, you believe in your heart that he died for your sins, and he was raised from the dead, and that you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, that not only did he die for you and that he was raised again, you accept and believe, but you also confess with your mouth, you can be saved. And that will be the beginning of a life of complete and utter extravagance. For those who have already said yes to Jesus Christ, I want you again to dedicate yourself afresh and anew. Will you learn from Marthas of the world? Yes, please do. But would you learn from Mary? Whatever that nature that God gave you, if you connect it to God, if you connect it to Jesus Christ, you will now be able to match who God created you to be with the most magnificent of all callings. And you'll be able to do so where you can give all yourself to the Lord and the Lord's service. And I want to remind you to do it because of one word. I want you to do it like Mary did. She was extravagant. That's my prayer for you this week. It's my hope for new hope. I trust that our lives would change as a result of these marvelous heroes of the faith. God bless you. See you again next week.
every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Oh, and you say I am loved when I can feel a thing. And you say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours. And I believe, oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe the only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth, in you I find my identity. Ooh, and you say I am loved when I can feel a thing. And you say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say I am held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours. And I believe, oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe, taking all I have and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. Oh, and you say I am loved when I can feel a thing. And you say I am strong when I think I am weak. And you say